So you're thinking about changing your own tires or learning how to change your own tires? Why in the heck would you want to do that? I mean, you've got a perfectly good mechanic down the road that'll do it for you for a decent price. Is it a decent price? I don't know. I can't do this. I'm gonna get destroyed in the comments. I'm out of here. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. This is going to be a really cool video. You guys are going to learn a ton of stuff in this video. Well, let me think here. I'll tell you what I'm not going to do. I'm not going to show you how to mount a wheel, a tire. I'm not going to show you how to balance a tire. I'm not going to show you how to true up a rim, the spokes, adjust them. So what am I going to do in this video? Dang. You know what? You should really thank me that I'm not going to do all that stuff, because I'm quite the hack and I will just butcher it. And there's a ton of good videos on the internet, on YouTube, how to do all that stuff. But so what am I going to do in this video? Oh, because I got all this expensive equipment down here. I wanted to test out my alarm system. Let's do that right now. Becky's home. Becky's home. Yep, it's working. Perfect. All right. Thanks for watching, folks. Frostbite out. See you next time. All right, all kidding aside. What I want to do in this video is kind of share with you my journey of how I got into changing my own tires, and maybe you're on the same journey that I was. You know, back in the day, early 2000s, when I could get back into motorcycling, and, the kids were of age, they were getting older where they could stay with an aunt or uncle, or maybe one of the neighbors that could have a sleepover for a week, whatever, that kind of thing. But, money was still kind of tight, and I needed to save money on tires because I was having them changed out, in a shop. And back then, back then, I think if I brought the tires in, it was like $25 a tire, so say $50 a set. Which added up because I started acquiring more bikes. I had one, then two, then three, then four, then five, and then that got stupid. Then it was back to three, and then to one, back and forth. Also, I don't even know, for you guys that have your tires changed in a shop, I don't even know what it costs. I would imagine if you took your tires or your bike into a shop and had them do it for you, I would think, I don't know, 50, 75, $100 a wheel. I really don't know, but let me know in the comments because I don't know. So that's kind of my journey. And what I want to do next is go over the tools that I've acquired over the years that I found useful and helpful, and give you some ideas of what you need to look for, and the advantages of some, and maybe possibly the disadvantages of others. So let's cover that now, okay? Now, back in the day, I had the 5-gallon pail, and I was on my knees or on a short stool in the garage, changing my tires out on the top of a pail, which maybe, I bet you a lot of you have done that, or that's kind of the situation you are in now. Basically what happened was I got old. My knees got, wore out, and my back started hurting. So I thought, you know what, it's about time I ditched the bucket. So ditched the bucket, which was basically free. That's a fishing pail. And I got this tire stand here. This is the Tusk tire stand. I believe they're about 124 or 124? 110. I'll post it down. They're a little over $100, but dang, this is nice. I mean, just being able to set the tire up and just be able to stand up comfortably, spin it around. I can have all my spoons in here. It just works well. It has this other attachment too, which I haven't used yet, but very nice piece of equipment. This is something that it's not necessary, but for an old fart like me, it sure is nice. So tire stand, very, very helpful, very useful. Saves your back, saves your knees. All right, let's move on to, what should we move on to now? I don't know. Let's see. Okay, let's start from the beginning with some basic tools. Now, if you have your tire on your bucket or on your tire changing stand, you're going to need to deflate your tire. And how you get that air out of there is you got to remove this sucker right here. This is a valve stem core or a Schrader valve. Now, the most popular tool, commonly used tool, is this one right here. This is just simply a valve core tool, and it has 4 ends. As you can see here, it's got this one, it's got this one, and this one, and this one. This one, what this end does here is if you booger up your threads on your valve stem, this is simply meant to chase those threads. So you can, and I've done that where I've actually damaged the threads that need to be from, you know, pliers or whatever, or rocks, whatever, sand, grit. This end here is designed to chase out the threads for your valve stem core. So that simply threads in there like so. That'll, if you have threads that are damaged, that will chase those threads for you. Let me show you something here. Hopefully this will show up. As you can see here, maybe there's a flat on there. Can you will that show up on the camera? I don't know. There's a flat on there, and that helps chase those threads. This end here, if you look at your Schrader valve, this rubber seal here, there's a slight taper to it. Will that show up? There's a slight taper to it. And this end here is meant to go in your valve stem and chase that out, clean it out, whatever. This end here is your valve stem core install or remover. So you simply put your Schrader valve in there, come on, and just simply thread it in. Now, like I said, this is the most commonly used tool, but what I like to do, I do keep one of these in my tool bag for my motorcycle, but a lot of people don't know that these exist. Now, we're all familiar with this valve stem cap here. This is your standard valve stem cap, goes on there like so, right? Well, a lot of people don't know that this exists. This is a valve stem cap with a valve stem core remover on it. So basically, I keep one of these on front and rear on my tubes or on my wheels. There it is there. Simply take that off and you can insert this and remove your valve stem core or your Schrader valve, just like so. And very handy to have. They're much smaller and easier. They're always on the bike, right? Because you got them on your valve stem anyways. So there you go. These are, I think you can buy these in 4-packs at any auto parts store or on Amazon or wherever. I think they're like $4 or $5 for 4 or 5. I can't remember exactly, but that for me is a must-have. This sucker right here goes everywhere with me, and if I have issues with my tire, like on the trail, I don't have to dig this out of my tool bag. I have it right there. Alrighty. Okay, next item on our tool list is bead breaker. You're going to need to break the bead. Now, there's a few ways you can break the bead. C-clamps. You can use your kickstand to lever it off. They do make bead breakers like this. This is the Motion Pro bead breaker. And I also have a set of Vever bead breakers right here. These work really nice for breaking the bead. They aren't always necessary, but sometimes they are. I carry these in my tool pouch, and I like the smaller size because they do fit my tool pouch, as you can see there. And the reason why I have the Vever is I like to keep this in my tire changing station in my basement here. I didn't buy another set of Bead Pros because the Bead Pro, this one here is, these here are $78 and these Vever ones are $28. Now I don't carry these. I would never carry these in my tool pouch because the Motion Pro, the Bead Pros, they are 9 ounces, and these Vever ones, they're steel. These are aluminum. The Vever ones are steel. They are 2 pounds 6 ounces. So very heavy, very heavy. And when you're on your bike, you want light. Light is king, right? I will say about the Bead Pros too, they do have, and the Vevert, they do have spoons on the other end, but they're, I don't like it. I don't like it because, you know, when you're spooning this off, whatever, on this side here, you got these little pokey ends and you got to wear gloves. I've hurt my hands on these things trying to spoon off a tire. Don't like that. Don't like it at all. So I have these Motion Pro spoons. I like these. They work well. They're kind of a smaller spoon. I like the smaller spoon end, and the handle here, these are steel. It's just comfortable. Now, on my other bikes, the KTM and the TW200, I do have these levers here. These are dual purpose levers. As you can see here, this has a hex in it. This is for my rear axle, front axle, and these work well. I have seen on the YouTube and forums and whatever, guys don't like these because they say that these break. Now I've had these levers here for, oh gosh, 8 years now, and I use this for the rear axle, which is torque to, I believe, 75 foot-pounds. I use this for tire changes probably at least 2 times a year, and also for chain adjustments, let's say half a dozen times. So 8 times a year times 8, I've used this 64 times, and this is never broken. Now you may be wondering how I maintain my torque specs when I'm on the trail. What I do here, I'll kind of draw you a little diagram here real quick. Hang on a sec. Let me get a pencil. What I do, you know, you're going to have your axle. There's the kind of, that's a simulated hex. And then you're going to have your screw adjuster like that. On each side, you're going to have your adjusting bolt like that. And what I do is I put a mark with a permanent marker on the bolt and on the screw adjuster, and then on the other side, you know, you're going to have your nut, like that's simulated nut, screw adjuster. I will do the same, like so. So if I have to adjust my chain on the trail, obviously you have to loosen the nut, and your bolt might not be in the proper position. So before I leave, I torque this down and I mark it on each side. And then if I have to adjust my chain, I can just simply make sure that these lines mark up, tighten it to that line, and I know my torque is pretty close. Also, you'll see that I have tape on here. Now, rim strips, if you're running spoke wheels, these are rim strips. I have a lot of them. They might get damaged or they might break, whatever. And you're going to need some either duct tape or Gorilla Tape. Now, I don't know if I said this before, but I like to have dual purpose tools. So this is dual purpose, this is dual purpose, this is for my TW, this is dual purpose, this is for the axles. It has a spoon on the end. So if my rim tape is damaged, I've got 2-inch Gorilla Tape, 1-inch Gorilla Tape, and I have some electrical tape, just in case, just cause. So that's my tire lever situation I got going on. I've really found it very, very helpful over the years. Make sure all your tools are light and dual purpose, or even tri-purpose in this case, because in here I have spoon 1, axle wrench 2, rim tape repair 3. So that's my tire lever changing situation, doohickey, thingy dingy, whatever you call it. You know what I'm talking about. Okay, the next thing we got to do is get our tube and tire installed onto the rim, correct? Now, typically in the summer, I've done tire changes in the summer. I usually do them in the winter, but winter is the key word here. I live in Minnesota, so putting a tire outside and letting it warm up in the sun is not possible when it's 20 below zero or even 0 or 20 above. So what I use is a hair dryer. This is just a cheap hair dryer that my stepdaughter left down in the basement bathroom. So what I do is I simply just set my tube on the floor or wherever on a table, and turn the hair dryer on, stick it in the tire, and let it warm up. And I'll spin this around and let that warm up. that's a great way of getting your tire on a lot easier, because a warm tire goes on much easier than a cold tire. Believe me, trust me. Now, my preferred method of installing a tubed tire onto a rim is to insert the tube into the tire first, and then feed the valve stem through the wheel, and then spoon it on that way. Now, some people will spoon on the first side of the tire, then tuck in the tube, and then try and feed this valve stem through here. If you've ever done that or tried to do that, or it's a pain in the butt, especially with a front tire, where like this front tire here, the space I had to work with was maybe an inch between the beads, and I could not fit my hand in there. So what I like to do is I like to do it this way: put my tube in the tire first, feed the valve stem in, spoon the tire on one side. Actually, to be honest with you, this is a, was that IRC? Even the IRC, this is a tube box. It says place tube valve into valve hole of rim and fit one side of the tire onto the rim. So even this says this. They skipped the part about putting the tube in the tire, but I think that's just common sense. And another bit of controversy out on the internet there is, where do these nuts go? Where do these nuts go? Which side do they go on? Do you have one on the inside of the rim and the other on the outside, or do you have none? Like, for instance, my KTM has, when I got it, had no nuts on the valve stems at all, on the inside or the outside. And I have heard horror stories where people have put the nut on the inside of the rim and they couldn't get the bead to seat in this area. And also, as you can see here, this is one I got off my KLR. This has been sitting, I don't know how long it was sitting, but it doesn't take long. This nut is seized on there. It's rusted. And you remember I was saying that I boogered up these threads. That's because this nut here, the top nut, was tightened down to the rim and it was seized, and I could not get this off. So this could possibly be a very good usable tube if this nut was not on here, because I could have just used it. Now the threads are all boogered up because I had to put a pair of vice grips on here. I did try putting the valve cap on there and loosening this nut. Did not work at all. So my preferred method is to not have this nut on the inside. I keep one or two or none on the outside here, and I simply tighten them up to the valve cap. And like I said, KTM doesn't use nuts at all. Well, you're going to need to air up your tire somehow. For many years, I had the type of pump you plug into your battery, and now I've opted for this. This is a Fantatic. I think I paid $35 for this. You can set your pressure. I did seat the bead on this tire just the other day. That worked out really well. I don't know how high this will go. I think it was up to 50. It's seated at about 35. I've got it set to 30, so very nice to have. Highly recommended. I like this. It is rechargeable, type C on the back, so perfect, works great. Now let's discuss balancing stands. What I've got here, this is a Harbor Freight balancing stand. I believe I paid, gosh, I don't know what I paid for it way back in the day. I've had this for 15 years. They're $45 now, but this worked great for many years when I just had the street bikes without spokes. And you can see there's spokes on there. Yep. But when I got spoke wheels, I needed to adjust spokes. I had a few wheels I had to relace with spokes, and I needed a truing stand. But I didn't want to buy another truing stand. Actually, I looked into buying another truing stand. You know, they're like $84 to $110, somewhere around there. But I didn't want to take up all the space. So what I did was I looked at truing stands, and really all that differentiates A balancing stand from a truing stand will be the little pointers and also these collars right here. If you could see that, can we see that? Can we see that collar? That collar right there? So all I did was I took this shaft into my hardware store, my local hardware store, matched it up with these are called stop collars. Got a couple stop collars. I believe they were $2.99 each, so I have one on each side, and that simply keeps the wheel from moving side to side, and easy peasy. For pointers, that's pretty easy. You can put a wire hanger on here or a piece of wood and just clamp it. You know, or do I have a clamp? I don't have a clamp handy. You can just clamp it, or I have a bolt with a magnet. You get an appropriate size length bolt with a magnet, obviously with the tire off, and you can get your hop and your run out. So that's it for tire stands. You can get a cheap one like this, 45 bucks, and just simply modify it, or go with the tire stands they have available. Like Vever has one, I believe, and Tusk has one. So yeah, that's it. Tire stands. What should we discuss next? I'm not sure. Okay, so we covered a bunch of tools and whatever. I'm sorry about not calling these tools the proper names, and sometimes I'm just, my brain gets all fried. Anyways, a few additional things I'd like to say, because I know this is getting long. If you're going to buy a balancing stand or a truing stand that you can use as a balancing stand, you're going to need some weights. If you've got a street bike, you probably want to use these sticky weights, cheap. I use, for spokes, I use these spoke weights. They work really well. Just a set screw, set them in there. Tire mounting lube. I used to use Windex, which works fine, but this stuff is far superior. And I also use baby powder. Now I have seen some guys that use silicone spray, which works, but god dang does it stink, and it gets you all messy. At least baby powder. I smell like a baby, you know. The one thing I would like to say is concerning tires. Now, gosh, I'm trying to be careful with this. Back in the day, I had a tire that was supposed to wear really well. I won't name the name, but it's supposed to be a long-lasting tire, and this was on my 690. It's supposed to be a long-lasting tire and a good 50-50 tire. That tire cost me, I looked it up, $214. The problem with that tire was it lasted 1,800 miles. It cost $214 for mounting. A bitch. It was a bitch. I mean, if it went flat on the trail, I'd be screwed, because dismounting was a double bitch. I ended up having to cut that off. Now keep in mind that tire was $214. It lasted 1,800 miles, and after that I went with and I'm not endorsing this brand at all, but the Tusk D-Sport tire. I still have those on my 690. I have almost 4,000 miles on them. They are done, but for 2 tires, 2 tubes, and 2 rim strips cost me $175. So the only point I'm trying to make is, if you're looking at a tire and it's supposed to be great, you know, long lasting, consider how difficult it is going to be to mount and how difficult it is to dismount. Because if you're on the trail and you need to make a tube repair or whatever, you don't want to get in trouble. And also, if you're just in your garage like me, or your basement, they can be a real pain in the butt. This sucker, I think I spooned this one on. This is a Tusk D-Sport here. I'd say 7 minutes, done. So anyways, that's all I have to say about that. I hope this was helpful. I hope this is informative. I know I covered a lot of topics, a lot of tools, but I just wanted to cover all the bases as thoroughly as I could, as quickly as I could, in 23 minutes and 45 seconds, whatever this video is going to turn out to be. So, all right, thanks for your attention. Thanks for subscribing. Should we check and see if my alarm's working? Maisie, Lady. Who is that? Who is that? Who is that? Who is that? Who is that, Mei? Come here. Who is that? Is Becky home? Where's Becky? Becky's home. Who is that? Adios.